Yafa Crane Luria, an ADHD pioneer since 1984, has dedicated her life to helping those with ADHD and their families. As a person with ADHD herself, she coaches parents that there is nothing wrong with their children or their parenting. At The Brain Possible, we strongly resonate with this message. Yafa is the author of How to Train Your Parents in 6.5 Days and the Amazon Kindle bestseller, Getting Schooled, 102 practical tips for parents, teachers, counselors, and students about living and learning with ADHD. Her most recent book is 6 word lessons for parenting your child with ADHD. 100 lessons to take your ADHD child from blocked to brilliant. In today's chat, we'll uncover some of those lessons and learn all we can from Yafa. Let's get started. Well, welcome, Yafa. It's so wonderful to have you here on the Brain Possible podcast.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about your ADHD and what your journey has been like to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was a kid, my mother told me I first got in trouble at age 2. So I wasn't diagnosed as a child, and pretty much everybody was confused. My mom at the time was working with kids who had what was called hyperkinesis at the time, and she was sure that I didn't have it. So I was sort of treated like a lot of undiagnosed kids and adults are, as, this is Yafa. This is something in her that's not right. And maybe it's a behavior problem, or maybe it's a, willfulness or stubbornness or defiance. And so I was treated as a child who was defiant, when that's not what I was going for at all. I was trying to be good.
Yeah.
I didn't, so elementary school was an alternative school, but I was more alternative than the alternative school. And then I went to public school, and I loved it because everything was very clear. In the alternative school, you had choices, but then you could do them wrong for some reason. But in the public school, it was very, very clear cut what you were supposed to do, and everybody was doing the same thing. So I felt a lot more, I felt like I belonged more, and like I really understood things. So, and I did well in public school. I can't say that school is not my challenge. I had more social challenges that were really difficult, like just blurting out stuff like, this is stupid, or can we do something else, or that sort of thing. And then so went to grad school, and went to college, went to grad school. Oh, I guess I should tell you about the guy. The guy in my case is a teacher. When I was 15, I had this teacher who just totally got me. And everything I've done since then is with him in mind. Because I wanted to be like him. Like, how do you reach somebody who everybody thinks is just trying to cause trouble? And so those kids are my kids, like, I totally get where they're coming from. Because a lot of times we're just extra curious, or we just want to feel like we belong, and we're not sure how to do that. So he really changed things. He really changed things for me. And so I went to college, went to grad school, and after I got my first master's degree, I was in therapy, and the therapist said, I think you might have, it was called minimal brain dysfunction at the time, not ADHD. And I was like,
minimal, that's a horrible name.
I clung on to the word minimal. So, because I mean, I was like, obviously, I mean, I had a master's degree. So obviously I wasn't, struggling in school. That wasn't where it was, but it really made me feel like, oh, this isn't me. This is a glitch that I have.
Mhm.
And because I thought it was like a personality or character defect. And I really thought there isn't anything I can do about it because I tried. I had a history of starting the school day saying, I am not going to get into trouble.
Oh,
And then, I'm going to be good today. Nobody's going to notice me today.
oh, that's
And then, yeah. And then, I don't know, like a couple hours later, they're like, you're staying in for recess. And I'm like, how did I get from here to here? I have no idea. And so I really thought I was just like, I'm uncontrollable, which is what I was told.
Mhm.
So I worked really hard to try to control myself. And then I got this diagnosis and I was like, oh, this explains so much. And it was really a huge relief.
Mm.
So that was my up to then. And then I decided, well, like I said, I get those kids. Those are my kids. Those are my people.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to focus on them. And knowing that they could be in lower level classes because their genius, let's say, is not recognized. They're not teaching to their strengths.
Mhm.
Or they could be in honors classes like I was. So it wasn't a matter of the level of education that I was teaching or the age group, but just how do I make a classroom um, accessible to as many people as possible?
Yeah.
And so I was definitely given some interesting classes, I have to say, but my goal is to really love those kids and make them give them opportunities to feel really good about themselves.
Yeah. Confidence.
Right, because they didn't have a lot of that.
Mhm.
Um,
They're
so
getting in trouble all the time
mhm,
and feeling just like, why don't I fit in anywhere?
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's really funny. Like someone will go, "But I have ADHD," and I'll be like, "Cool, I have it too," and they're like, "What?" Like you do. Um, and then after teaching, I started doing counseling, and usually I was school counseling, and usually I was given the kids that were called at risk.
Mm.
And that could be anything. It could be something going on in their homes that made them, like a parent dying,
Mm.
alcoholism, um, a house burned down. I mean, there's lots of reasons that a kid could be sort of, on edge and
Yeah.
just not functioning well. And
Mhm.
those are the kids that I get. And those are the kids that I mean, I love kids, but man, I love those ones that are just misunderstood because it's just nice to be able to see that gleam in their eye when they're like, oh, that's exactly what I'm trying to say, or that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
So, and then I
That's really
started,
special
yeah,
for someone to
thanks.
have someone like you. I mean, it's I don't know if there's like quality control, but to have your unique person as the counselor for someone coming in there,
Yeah,
that's those children are fortunate.
yeah. Well, it's it's not something that I could have predicted um, because even though I was smart, it was one of those, okay, you're smart, but as a girl or a woman back then,
Mm.
I could do the exact same thing as a guy and get kicked out, so it was basically like you aren't gonna make it at work because um,
You
you
don't
know,
fit
you
within that mold.
right, I don't fit within the mold. You could be smart, but people don't understand you anyway, and almost like you're too smart, and so it was just, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
So how did ADHD impact your career in education?
you know it didn't much, except that I did change the way I was teaching,
Mm,
um, to be more like heart focused and brain focused. How can I teach a lesson so that their brain is going to be stimulated, and how can I teach a lesson so that they feel connected to the
mhm,
class or to the lesson or to me enough to want to pay attention? Because if you've got a lot of things going on, and today's kids do,
mm,
um, you're distracted all the time.
yeah.
There are a lot of things to distract you. So whatever class I got, I tried to teach it sort of like for the ADHD kids, but it was no hardship for the other kids. It just meant that um, some of the other kids thought that the class was easy, which it wasn't. And some of the kids were like happy to get some extra A's or B's, So it was just, I just made sure that I addressed everybody,
Mm.
instead of just the ones that were standing out.
Can you say more about that? Like how?
Mhm.
Like what are some of your methods in the classroom?
So one thing I did was, I really, really encouraged participation. Um, you could like we would go around, we'd kind of snake it around the desks
Hmm.
and go through questions, and the kids were really used to that. And um, they could answer a question. If they got it wrong, they got I did these point things because it made sense to me, but I know for other teachers it's very complicated. If you tried and didn't get it right, you still got some credit. Um,
Hmm.
and if you said pass, you didn't get a zero or anything. Nothing happened to you. You just didn't get points. You didn't get anything.
Hmm.
Um, and then the you could get points taken away by doing like by being disruptive, basically.
Yeah.
And I explained to them, here's what I need just because I have ADHD. So here's what I need from you, which is I needed hands raised, because if everybody's talking at once, I can't sort out who's saying what. So, so it became sort of a game, and we did play it as a game. I mean, I think that's super, super important to be serious, but because we want to take their lives seriously, but we also want to be playful because
Hmm.
they're they relate to play. I mean, they're kids.
Yeah.
So so it was sort of like, they were really into the participation points. And even if you got points docked, so to speak, you could easily earn them back because a plus canceled out a zero, blah, blah, blah. So it was no big deal. It was just like, oops, you know, um, shouldn't have said that or whatever. But they knew that they could. You had to make a firm decision to fail, to fail in my class. Like you had to devote your time to failing,
Mm.
because I wanted participation, because I believe that participation, would be stimulating the brain. I mean, obviously it would be.
Mm.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted their brains stimulated. I didn't want them just like sort of sitting back and being like, nah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I did have, when I was observed by the administration, they said that I had the most participation of any class.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so it was
That's
pretty.
great. So that was
Yeah.
great for you to be able to listen to them one at a time by raising their hand, but
Hmm.
also well, one, I think explaining to kids that that's why you want them to do it that way helps them to like understand that that's helpful for a lot you and other
Right.
people that they will encounter. And also probably, even though kids like to talk over each other, they don't understand and they're not listening if multiple people are talking either, even if they
Right.
don't have ADHD.
Right.
You just can't really listen to multiple conversations at once. Okay,
Yeah.
so you say that your brain is your favorite thing about yourself.
Yeah.
What has this mindset done for you? And what do you hope by offering it to, like, can you share about that more?
Yeah, sure. So I think sort of conventional wisdom says that something's wrong with our brain, those of us that have ADHD.
Okay.
There's something wrong. And then there's the other side that says, oh, it's a superpower or it's a gift. And my feeling is it's not either. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
And that thing can be watered, so to speak. It can blossom. And, you just get them like using certain techniques and you find out more about the kid or the adult. And then, so for instance, I want to find out, this is going to sound, well, it won't sound weird. Like, where in your body do you feel time passing? So like really specific questions like that.
Yeah.
So that they can find what works for them, because what works for one person is not going to work for another. And most of the approaches, many of the approaches to ADHD, especially if you don't have ADHD, is sort of, let's give the kids or the adults, let's teach them the way it's done, and it's like, that's counterproductive. Because it's not sustainable. I can learn how a neurotypical brain does X, but if it doesn't
apply to you,
feel right, it has to feel like that's me. Oh, I can do that. Otherwise, it's just not sustainable. So I spent a ton of years, just working with kids. And the cool thing about working with them every day, as opposed to like a doctor that sees them maybe once every 3 to 6 months, is that I could see right there what worked and what didn't work.
yeah.
And so I could adjust immediately if I needed to, whatever that adjustment was. Maybe it was an extra explanation. Maybe it was try this first. With a doctor, you tend to have to, call in and say, I don't think the pills are working, kind of thing, or can I raise them? And, there's some delayed involvement and response.
Yeah, totally.
So the cool thing about being a teacher was I really got to see how brains change. And so once I get that brains can change, like the sky's the limit. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really like that about, it's almost like taking the stigma away from a label, because
Right.
it's not that it's a gift and it's not that it's a deficit.
Yeah.
Really.
Right.
Even though
Right.
we call it that.
I know it's in the name, but we're going to ignore that.
Yeah, but it applies to not just ADHD and ADD,
Absolutely.
but all the neurological diagnoses that
Yep.
parents who listen to this podcast are dealing with. And
yeah,
I think labels have a purpose in like helping you to maybe guide certain treatments or to help, start navigating, like giving you a map maybe or an explanation. But beyond that, you don't want to get stuck in it.
Right. And I think that also people don't realize that those of us with not neurotypical brains, it's just so funny how everybody wants us to act like somebody who's neurotypical, when if you think of a bell curve, neurotypical is right in the middle. So basically, I feel like I'm
Yeah.
like ahead of the middle, but you want to push me back to the middle kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I've been given an outlook on life and
Mm-hmm.
a way to process information and generate information that is unique. And
Mm-hmm.
so have the people who have like traumatic brain injury, or the people who have um, sensory processing disorder, or we that aren't neurotypical have been given this book of information that we have that neurotypical people don't have about us.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, here, read my book, not literally a book, but get to know me, because we can teach you stuff, not just about us, but about how thinking works, how the world works, how people perceive each other,
Yeah.
so it's really important that we be included.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm just like thinking about how right now there's a lot of conversations in the world going on about trying to be inclusive of everyone. And
Yeah,
we're talking a lot about race and sexuality and some big topics. But that
yeah,
applies also here with
for
this
sure.
community.
Yep, yep,
Because there's a whole bunch of people who don't fit into this typical, that bell
yeah,
curve.
yeah,
um,
exactly.
so I think it's important for us to talk about that too, um, and
Yeah,
bring awareness.
agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we have something, that that might that might change your life, so to speak.
Oh
It's not
yeah.
just oh, we need all these neurotypical people to teach us how to do X, Y, and Z. Like, we've got stuff. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah,
Um, well, speaking of this, you tell
yeah,
parents that there is nothing wrong with their kids or their parenting, and I absolutely love that message. Um,
yeah,
because this is different than most practitioners' approaches,
for
how do
sure.
your clients generally respond when you say that? I imagine it's kind of like a big exhale.
Yeah. So, this is part of why I love my brain, is because because I said to myself one day, what if there's nothing wrong? And what if I start saying there's nothing wrong?
I
Then
love
what
it.
happens? And yeah, so it was like, yay, brain. And so, I think, well, I know that when parents get a diagnosis, um, there's a huge stigma attached to ADHD, and that's all around the world. It's the butt of so many jokes, um, or oh, I can't, oh, I can't focus today. I must have ADHD, or
Hmm.
just stuff like that. And so it's not good to have that diagnosis, because you're going to be put in that sort of pot of or pile of kids that are made fun of, parents that are told they're not doing a good job parenting, they need to be more strict or more lenient. so um so I want to, yeah, right, so I want to just back up and go, okay, let's let's start in the place where we say nothing's wrong, and and like everybody else, it's a what we need is to learn. And there was the teacher mindset also. It's not about changing who you are, it's about learning new skills. I'm not going to take away anything that you are, but I also want to make sure that you're connecting with the world, connecting with your family, connecting with your kids, because that's the most important thing. um, it's not the grades you get, it's does your heart like function, and can it connect?
Yeah.
um
Are you
and so
thriving?
exactly.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so parents are absolutely relieved, and I have stories about, you know like sometimes they'll say, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, and it's like, you could be the best parent in the world,
Mm-hmm.
not doing anything wrong, but you still need different skills to parent that kid.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a good
and
reminder.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
have 4 kids myself and sometimes wonder what the heck I'm doing
right,
wrong.
right, exactly. And I've had experiences myself, like with my grandkids, for instance, where I know I'm not doing anything wrong, but I am not connecting. And so I have to reevaluate the situation because I'm the adult, and sort of look at it. Okay, what does she need right now? And how do I ask that? And so I can make a connection that she can't make. And that's really also a lot of times teachers and parents and therapists think about connection as, well, I'm doing all the right things. But but connection is a two-way street. And if your kid can't hear what you're saying, can't receive what you're saying, then you're not making a connection. you're
Yeah.
you're just talking at them. So um and really pretty I find it really pretty easy once you kind of know the secret. Um, you have to, yeah, there are things to change in your family, but it's also pretty easy because, um, I mean, it's hard to manage school because schools generally are, as a teacher, I can say, are designed, their classes are taught at a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
They're designed to socialize kids for the world that we live in. And some kids are not easily socialized in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very scary for parents. It's very scary. I mean, so, but I'm very optimistic, and which I wasn't always. I mean, as a kid, I was not. Um, but I've seen so much progress, and I've seen oh my gosh, I've seen, like, sort of going from, like, I'm too scared to go outside to, I have a job now within a few months. It's
Mm.
like, that's crazy, it's so exciting. And so I bring that, like, excitement and optimism to your family.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the most common challenges that you see from your clients?
Um, so I'm just laughing because it's like
Many.
very well, it's common, so usually you get something about, I just want him to be motivated to do his schoolwork. And I'd be like, it's not fun to do schoolwork. So let's not worry about him being motivated to do it. Let's just
Okay.
let's make sure that he can get it done.
Okay.
Like, forget motivation.
Hey, you're speaking to me
um,
right now. I think I've said that many times.
exactly. And, and focus. And so, parents typically will just, well, so will teachers, it's like, focus, focus. And, and I'm like, that doesn't work. I mean, that's like
Staying for
telling your
focus.
pancreas to produce insulin. I mean, it doesn't work just because you command it. And then the other point is, they're probably focused, just not on what you want them to focus on.
Mm.
So there's a lot of focus and motivation stuff. There's a lot of behavior. ADHD tends to be seen as, kids with behavior problems, basically.
In some of the ways that you said, like blurting things out, maybe saying things that aren't socially acceptable.
Could be rudeness.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
high school students, I get a lot of parents that say, when I ask for the phone at the end of the day, my child says no and then walks away. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and you let him, sort of like, okay, let's just kind of back up here. So a lot of what I do is backing up and making sure that the kid is getting their very essential needs met. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of kids with ADHD don't get enough sleep and have sleep issues
Okay.
that have to be addressed. They're very important because, a lack of sleep is not, it's going to make your ADD um,
Make it worse.
quirks or whatever is going to, yeah, it's going to enhance the negative side and not the positive side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to focus when you're tired.
Mm.
So
Okay.
look,
So all that, those you just named a whole bunch of top ones.
yeah.
And then in your coaching practice, what are some of the practical strategies that you recommend
Right.
in some of these areas? I'm sure there's many, and that's why you
Yeah.
coach for X amount of time repeatedly, because it takes a while, but
Yeah.
in general.
So the way I look at it is I have a lot of strategies
Oh, yeah.
and I need to find the ones that fit your kid
Yep.
and your family, because families are unique in so many little ways, including how many times they've moved. Has someone died? Does someone get sick a lot? I mean, just so many little things, because connection depends on emotional connection and attachment. And so
Yeah.
if the child is informed by, or if the child's thoughts or emotions are informed by tragedy or adverse conditions, it's
Yeah.
going to be harder for them to connect. So we want to make sure that I want to make sure that I'm giving that child and that family what's going to work for them, because otherwise there's no point. And my feeling is, if I could tell you a rule to put into play, but if you're not going to back it up, then let's just drop it. Like, there's no point in having a rule that you're not going to follow, that a parent isn't
Follow
follow.
through with.
Yeah. And so it's like, fine, we'll just drop it. We'll figure out a different way to, like, get to the goal you want. So
Which is
strategy.
a motivated kid that focuses, which you hear all the time.
Yeah. So strategies. Mostly, I'm going to start with how to get connected. If I'm talking to a parent, it's often I don't find that, like, a lot of parents think, oh, I'm just not doing enough. And what I've found is that most parents are doing too much. They're just trying to take all the information in and apply it and see what works. And, that's a haphazard approach. It's not taking care of, the issue at hand, which is what I want to do, is come in and go, here's the issue, here's where we're going to focus. Let's not do this anymore because blah, blah, blah. Let's not do this anymore because blah, blah, blah. And
is that because if you're doing too many things at once, one, you could lose focus, and two, you don't know what's working?
And yes, and it's bringing everything in at a level that's not really a commitment, or it's, well, let me just try this and see what happens. Okay, that didn't work. You try it once, that didn't work. And some things just don't work because you, the parent, is trying to look like the family next door that has the ADHD kid also. Or, oh, my mother used to teach special ed, so I'm going to ask her what to do. I mean, you have a better chance if that's the situation, but it's still about customizing it to the family. So I have different suggestions. And they're not hard and fast rules, because as you will find in some ADHD type publications, because they don't work for everybody. But you could say some kids want to have different places where they do their homework. Some people want to have one place where they do their homework that's just theirs. I usually ask kids, like, where would you feel comfortable doing your homework? And I don't care if it's a closet, um, because a closet is enclosed and that might make them feel, sort of swaddled and safer, sort of in their body and present instead of like scared. Um, I had one client that said, so I live in the Pacific Northwest, and um, and he said he'd like to be able to do his homework outside, leaning against a tree. And I said, okay, but what about the rain? Well, so tarp camping is like a thing up here. You take tarps and you adjust them so that the rain doesn't, it goes over there and it doesn't land on you. So he's like, I'll just take a tarp and figure that out. And it's like, that concept is foreign to so many other people in the United States, but it fits him.
Right.
Some kids want to have a fan going because that soothes them. There's a lot of soothing that needs to take place in order for somebody to make a connection. You're not going to want to connect to somebody or some situation that makes you feel less than or scared or not understood.
Yeah.
So I think, connecting on the emotional level is always the first step, always. And I did that when I was teaching. We always spent the first few days to a week, just because if I don't have the connection, I can't do anything else. I'm going to be constantly interrupting what I'm doing to address, some behavior from somebody who is distracted or uncomfortable in some way. So my job as a teacher or a counselor or a coach is to first create an environment where they can feel comfortable.
I like that.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
The one parent told me she took her kid to a therapist who was an expert at executive function, ADHD type stuff, and her kid didn't. So the first day, the therapist gave the kid a set of activities to practice to build executive function. And like that face you just made. And and the kid didn't want to and never went back. And I was like, that guy is not an expert in executive function or ADHD. I would never give somebody work to do when I just meet them. No way. I mean,
I think that executive functioning therapy or practicing that is wonderful. But the thing is, you have to find the right person to guide you, because they're not all the same. And so I also wouldn't, want to tell someone, hey, well, that's not a thing you need to work on. It might not be a thing with that person.
Yeah.
There's other ways and other practitioners or therapists who can help you. And that applies to every single type of therapy you're going to do. There, just
exactly. And I like to say we are late bloomers, not non-bloomers, and so it's helpful to know which executive functions are sort of at a higher level that your kid might not get until he's 21. Even though there are 16-year-olds that can do this.
Totally. And that's, actually kind of normal. If you look at the brain, it doesn't, I try to tell this to my 13-year-old, that her brain won't be fully developed even until her early 20s.
Yep.
But yet.
Even late 20s, depending.
Certain parts. Yeah. So, But I think they are, a lot is expected of children starting in middle school.
For sure. And along with that expectation is a failure to be the ones to teach them how to get there. Self-advocacy is a big deal in schools, but there you have a bunch of kids that don't know how to advocate for themselves
No,
and
no.
are suffering with anxiety, and self-advocacy is scary. And so if you're not going to teach them how to do it, they're not going to do it, and then you're going to be mad at them because they're not advocating for themselves. And it's like, dang.
Yeah, no, I get that, because they have to advocate for themselves every day in one way or another, but often it's a first time situation for them. Each
Right.
situation that comes up, it's like, what do
Yes,
I say to this
exactly.
person? Or
Exactly.
they didn't know that they should say anything.
You know, I compare it to something like walking or talking or toilet training. It's like,
Yeah.
when you're first potty training a kid, you're like, you have to go in the bathroom with them. You have to sing a song, do a dance, read a book, give them M&Ms, whatever it is. But they aren't always there. By the time they're 12, they're not going to say, oh, can you come in the bathroom with me and sing a song? Development is progressive unless there's something that is significant that stops or slows the development. It's always going to be progressive. So the amount of help you're giving your child now does not have to be the amount of help you give your child when they're 30 or 40. It just
Yeah.
doesn't.
Perspective.
So
It won't last forever.
no, it won't. And then they become and they don't automatically turn, it's not like at 26 their brain kicks in and now they can do anything, and the day before they couldn't. Learning is progressive, and so is executive function accumulation. And there are ways to speed up, encourage executive function development by like the way I do a behavior plan, which is a family plan, not a that kid plan.
Okay.
But the way I do that has so many opportunities to develop executive function in kids, in any kids, because you can't go to someone with ADHD and say, we're going to learn this executive function today. And they're going to be like, yeah, no.
You got to be on the fly and just integrate it, weave it into
exactly, to everyday stuff.
And everyday stuff. Okay, so you wrote 6 word lessons for parenting your child with ADHD. 100 lessons to take your ADHD child from blocked to brilliant.
Yeah.
Love the name.
It's a long title.
Okay, so can you share a few of those lessons with us?
I wish I had my book. So some of the stuff that I'm saying, especially in the first chapter, I want to change people's mindsets or understandings of ADHD. So I do say it's not, there's nothing wrong with your child. And then the next one is there's nothing wrong with you. I have chapters. Yeah. And because I want to get them from the start, like, we're not going to be playing in the same pool you've been playing in, so to speak.
No, just pausing there, like, gosh, there's nothing wrong with your child and there's nothing wrong with you. That applies, gosh, to every parent listening.
Right. And I mean, yes, there are challenges. I'm not saying there aren't challenges, but to label the challenges as, deficits or evidence of a disorder, or that's just looking at ADHD and everything else as a deficit. And there's so much more to ADHD and so much more to autism and so much more to all of these things than the challenges. Like if we just could learn more about it, we could focus on the positive things. So yeah, I don't want them to, I really want to smash that one.
Yeah.
You know, that there's something wrong, because that's just very shameful, and I've been there. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But
not
yeah.
it's not a nice thing to do to a kid, for one thing, you know, like to be like, oh yes, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Your brain is different. It's like, every brain is different. Okay.
Yeah. I have found that I have spent time in my own self-reflection and
Sure.
been coached myself to, when I feel like go into there's something wrong here, I have to back myself out of that.
Exactly.
Because you can't really make any changes or take even any beneficial actions if you're stuck in there's something wrong.
Yeah. And then along those lines, I also have a lesson on, I call them red flag words. So or phrases. So everybody has, and you said yours was, I'm doing something wrong, but everybody has a phrase that they say to themselves pretty often, and it's completely wrong, and it's leading them somewhere else that isn't helpful. So so I have a client who, a lot of mine, and this particular client I'm talking about is yeah, I'm fine, I've got this. And when I say that, I'm like, whoa, okay, back up, because I know that if I say I'm fine, I got this, I don't need help, that is not true. I've seen it time and time again. And I can do this on my own, that kind of thing,
Like
which is
creating a wall.
totally. And it's a typical thing for like teenage boys to say, because teenage boys aren't supposed to ask for help. And so I got this, I can do it on my own. I don't need your help, Mom. What I want to do is encourage kids to ask for help by showing that I am available. There are times when I sit on Zoom, like they'll say, oh, I haven't done my homework for blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, let's do it now. And I sit on Zoom while they're doing their homework. And then periodically I ask, how's it going? And then they'll say, well, I don't know what this is. And I'll say, oh, let me look it up. But they're doing their homework. I'm just turning homework into something that isn't as painful and is accompanied by love, because my clients know that I really, really care about them. I really believe that these ADHD kids are
Brilliant.
Are the future. Yeah, brilliant. Future leaders and future creators, or even now they're creating. And they could come up with solutions that, Israel has the highest incidence of ADHD in the world.
I didn't know that.
And it also leads in science and technology and medicine. So, like, okay, it's that because they're trying different things, is my assumption. It's okay to try different things.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so where can listeners find out more about you, Yafa?
So my website that I'm redoing, like it's a project I'm doing it's a project I'm going to be doing sort of from the end of May to the first week in June, but it's still functional. My website is blockedtobrilliant.com. And you can also just put in yafaluria.com and you'll get to the same place. So that's one place. The other place that I recommend is YouTube, because I have a lot of videos on YouTube and I'm
Oh, great.
constantly adding. I have over 100 videos on YouTube and I'm constantly adding to them. And anybody who's listening to one of those videos, if you, whoever you are, have a question for me, just either email me the question or put it in the comments of a YouTube video, and I will do a video that answers your question.
Oh, wonderful.
Anonymously, right? Yeah,
Okay.
I won't say your name or where you live or what your kid's name is or anything like that, but I will answer your question. It's important for me to know gender and age, because somebody somebody said to me, I have 3 boys, 3, 6, and 9, and I'm not sure how to do whatever, such and such, and I'm like, which one are you talking about? Because 3, 6, and 9, that's a lot of years. They're going to be, you're going to handle things differently depending.
True.
Yeah. So,
And then your books.
and I have books, and I'm writing another one that is, it's probably going to be a masterpiece because it is so hard to write. That's my experience, is that the best ones are just really hard to write. Yeah, and I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. What I want to do, and then I have an e-zine. So the best places to get information to see what I'm about and get comfortable, if that's what you want to do, would be YouTube and subscribing to the e-zine, which you can do from my website. And because I put a lot of information in those 2 places, I put the most information in those 2 places. I think Facebook kind of gets unwieldy after years and years. So
yeah, I'm not too active on there, but I keep it because I think it's one other place to connect with people. But yeah. Are you on Instagram? That's the one place you didn't mention.
I'm not on Instagram and I'm not on TikTok. I was on Instagram, but I don't like it. And so
fair. That is fair.
I mean, there's so much to look at. And is that where I want to put my attention?
Hey, that is so true, because it's like, especially if you know the way that you get distracted.
Exactly.
All it is one giant distraction for people. Exactly. All these colors.
Exactly.
Then you find you've been on it for an hour.
Colors is like, that's always going to distract me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Exactly. I have to take care of this brain. It's an important thing, and it needs tender, loving care.
Yeah. I love it. Well, it has been such a pleasure speaking with you. I want to ask you one last question.
Sure.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with the Brain Possible community to be complete?
I just want to say, don't give up. There is somebody out there, whatever is going on, there is somebody who can help you. And I've seen it so many times that if you just start using your resources to ask around, like, who can I get to help? But it is really important to not do it on your own, to get professional help, whatever that looks like. I don't even think we were supposed to do life on our own. So
yeah,
find a friend or a teacher or a mentor or a professional and let them help you.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation today and that you learned something new. Do you have a question for Yafa? Let us know how we can be useful in your journey. Email us at info@thebrainpossible.com. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast if that feels true for you. You may also consider visiting our website for more information on stories, therapies, and products that we think that you will love. As always, thank you for spending your precious time with us at The Brain Possible. See you next week, and be well.